The storm hit just after 7:00 p.m., minutes after everyone else had packed up. Harper had lingered at her desk longer than usual, partly to finish a logo revision, partly to avoid sharing an elevator with Victoria Lang, her impossibly intimidating boss. But now, thunder cracked like a whip above the skyline. Rain pelted the floor-to-ceiling windows so hard it sounded like applause. The lights flickered, the elevator shut down. Harper stared at the power outage notification on her phone, heart sinking. She wasn't alone. Victoria stood by the glass wall of the executive suite, arms crossed, lit by the moody flashes of lightning. Her heels were off, but her stance remained regal, unbothered, untouchable. "You're still here," Victoria said without turning. Harper's throat tightened. "Yeah, the storm, I didn't think it'd get this bad." "No one ever does." They stood in silence for a moment, the storm outside pulsing like a heartbeat. Harper's laptop pinged low battery and died. She was out of work to pretend to do. Then came the flick of a lighter. Victoria lit a single candle she found in the break room, its flame softening the edges of her otherwise cutting features. "I guess we're trapped," Harper murmured. Victoria turned, candle in hand, her eyes catching the glow. "Seems so." It was the first time Harper really noticed how tired she looked beneath the armor. The sharp black blazer, the slick bun, the flawless lipstick, all a carefully constructed mask. And now, slightly smudged at the corners, Harper pulled her hoodie tighter. "You always stay late?" "I don't sleep much." Something cracked in the air, not just thunder, something thinner, more human. Victoria sat on the leather couch and exhaled like she hadn't all day. "I hate storms," she said softly. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said. Harper hesitated, then joined her on the couch. Close, but not touching. The candle between them flickered, shadows dancing on the walls. "You always seem so untouchable," Harper whispered. "Like nothing gets to you." Victoria looked at her with tired amusement. "That's the point." Harper's voice lowered. "Why let it down now?" A long silence. Then Victoria answered, "Because you're the only one who ever notices." The space between them charged in an instant. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, time hung still. Victoria reached out first slowly, testing fingertips brushing Harper's jaw. Harper leaned in before she could think twice. Their lips met in a kiss that started careful, curious, and unraveled fast. The candle hissed in the draft, and neither of them noticed as it blew out. Their bodies tangled, breathless against leather cushions, shedding layers of tension like silk. Victoria's touch, once cold and calculated, was now fire along Harper's skin. Harper's laugh, usually nervous, was replaced with sighs and gasps as hands roamed in the darkness. No longer boss and subordinate, no more masks. Just two women, lost in the thunder, finding something raw in each other. The hum of the storm faded into background static, like white noise meant to cloak the kind of secrets that could only be born in moments like this. Harper's back arched slightly against the couch as Victoria's fingers traced the edge of her rib cage, slow and deliberate, like she was memorizing the shape of someone she never thought she'd be allowed to touch. Their breath mingled, shallow and quick, each kiss deeper than the last, trading heat for vulnerability. Victoria pulled back, just enough to look Harper in the eyes. "This doesn't leave this room," she said, voice low but trembling slightly. "It wasn't a command, it was a plea." Harper nodded, eyes wide, heart racing. "I know," but she didn't. Not really. Because something had cracked open in both of them, something that couldn't be packed away with the rain once it stopped. Victoria leaned in again, kissing along Harper's jaw, down her neck, hands sliding beneath the hem of her hoodie, up over her bare skin. Harper's breath caught. "You're warmer than I thought," Victoria murmured, lips brushing the shell of her ear. "You're softer than I thought," Harper replied. Victoria froze for a second, then smiled. Not the tight-lipped boardroom smirk, a real one. Tired, surprised, touched. Clothes were unfastened slowly, as if permission had to be asked with every button undone. When Harper's hoodie slipped off, Victoria stared for a moment, fingertips ghosting across her collarbone. "You don't even realize what you do to people, do you?" Harper flushed. "What do I do?" Victoria leaned closer, lips barely grazing hers again. "You make me forget I'm supposed to be in control." Lightning split the skyline outside, throwing silver light into the studio. For a heartbeat, Harper saw her reflection in the window, half naked, hair mussed, flushed cheeks, and Victoria behind her, dark eyes fierce and wide open. Then the moment swallowed them whole again. Harper's hands explored under Victoria's blouse, feeling tense muscle and delicate skin. She wanted to know every part of her, the polished shell and the aching woman underneath. The cool exterior was melting fast. Victoria's breath hitched when Harper's mouth found the hollow of her throat. "God," Victoria exhaled. "What are you doing to me?" "Something honest," Harper whispered. And with that, Victoria pulled her down again, lips desperate, hips shifting against her in a rhythm that sent sparks down Harper's spine. Their limbs tangled, heat building, mouths tasting each other's gasps. Every sigh echoed louder in the still office, a soundscape of reckless need and unspoken confessions. Later, much later, they lay side by side on the couch, bodies covered in a blanket Victoria pulled from her private closet. Rain still tapped gently against the glass, but the rage of the storm had passed. Victoria stared at the ceiling. Harper turned to her. "Are we going to pretend this didn't happen tomorrow?" Victoria didn't look at her, but her hand found Harper's under the blanket, their fingers interlacing slowly. "I don't know yet," she said quietly. "But I don't want to." The elevator lights blinked back to life. The storm was over, but something had begun. The low whir of the elevators booting up broke the stillness, but neither of them moved. The office was no longer cloaked in shadow, just dim and quiet, like the pause between heartbeats. Harper rested her cheek against Victoria's shoulder, her fingers still loosely intertwined with hers beneath the soft blanket. In the silence, everything felt louder, her own breathing, the warmth between them, the impossibility of what had just happened. Victoria finally sat up. Slowly, carefully, she gathered her blouse from the armrest, smoothing it out mechanically as if trying to rebuild the wall she had so recklessly let fall. Harper sat up too, pulling the blanket tighter around her chest. "So, what now?" Victoria didn't answer at first. She stood, walking barefoot across the cold marble floor to the window. The storm had left the city slick with reflections. Downtown Chicago gleamed below them, wet, waking, unaware. "I've spent years becoming someone people don't question," Victoria said finally. "Someone with power, distance, control." She turned, arms folded, eyes sharp again but softer, now focused entirely on Harper. "And tonight, I unraveled it all for you." Harper swallowed, heart aching at the words. "Do you regret it?" A flash of something crossed Victoria's face. She stepped forward, 1 step, 2, then knelt on the couch beside her, pulling the blanket aside just enough to place her palm flat against Harper's heart. "No," she said, "but I'm terrified." Harper leaned into her touch. "Me too." Victoria searched her eyes. "You're not just some passing obsession, Harper. I see the way you walk into a room like you're apologizing for existing, and yet you're the only person who's ever made me feel seen. You undo me, and you don't even know it." Harper's voice came out a whisper. "So stop pretending this is a mistake." Another long pause. Victoria's fingers trembled where they touched Harper's skin. Then, like gravity had shifted, they fell into each other again, this time slower, less urgent, but no less intense. There was a tenderness now, a reverence. Their kisses weren't about hunger anymore. They were about memorizing, about saying things they didn't yet have the language for. Afterward, they stayed curled together under the blanket as the first rays of dawn pushed through the clouds. "You'll be at the office before everyone else anyway," Harper teased gently. Victoria smirked, sleepy. "So will you. Guess I'll be the only one knowing you drink chamomile tea and cry during rainstorms." "And you," Victoria said, brushing her thumb over Harper's lips, "have a birthmark on your hip and get goosebumps when I touch your back." They smiled, the kind that comes when nothing needs to be said, because everything already had been between sighs, between confessions, between the storm and the sunrise. When the office filled later that morning, no one would know what had happened between the creative director and her junior designer. But something had changed. It wasn't just the air, or the looks they would try not to steal across the boardroom. It was something deeper, something real, something that, once touched, could never go back to being cold again.